Welcome to the Sleeping Barber podcast.
What time is it?
It's time for the post-pod.
Post-pod. Post-pod.
So good. You should have been like a DJ or something.
Hell no. My kid laughs every time I do little sounds, and my wife just rolls her eyes. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I get a lot of eye rolling right now with my family. Yeah. Okay, so Dale, we covered a lot of ground. What were some of the things that stuck out for you, V?
Demand gen architects out there, you're just marketers. Sorry to break it to you.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
there's a few. Sorry, just there are a few.
Go for
things
it. Expand on that. Yeah.
Well, I thought I almost regret not starting with that one specifically, because I felt like we probably could have gone down, I don't want to call it a rabbit hole. I think there's such a genuine conversation around demand generation, the idea of what we actually do as marketers versus the perception and a lot of the roles that that are coming into existence around this idea that you can actually generate demand. It's generating awareness, right? And it's really interesting to kind of have that. I don't want to call it a contrarian view. I think what it is, just kind of like the somewhat of an epiphany, or calling things. I think he called it as just calling things as they are versus trying to make them things that they're not. Right.
Yeah.
So again, this idea of demand generation, the idea of using ROI as a key metric, where it's flawed in its own state, depending on how you want to really perceive it. So I thought there was just a lot of great little nuggets throughout our conversation with Dale that I think at the end of the day, all we just have to do is make sure that we're really understand A, what it is that we're measuring, B, we're very purposeful around that, and then C, making sure we're not just loading or putting out in the air there just stuff that actually doesn't make sense in the grand scheme of things. And
I agree. I mean, there's like the demand generation. I get the idea of it. In a way, it's kind of like rebranding brand awareness. Like you could say you're a brand manager, and you're part of your objective and your job and of campaigns you're running is to generate awareness.
Yeah.
So agree with that. A lot of demand gen I would say probably a lot of them, if you ask them, and I've talked to a few people that are demand gen managers, directors, that kind of thing. And when you ask them more about what their role is, it is oftentimes about creating awareness for the product in general.
Okay.
Maybe sometimes for the category, but for sure for the product and creating preference. So cool. But then you have this other problem, which is just because you're changing the term doesn't mean you can change the measurements that matter. And then because you change the term, I think it also is a challenge, because then you're setting up an expectation based on the word. Like, I do think words matter. And so if you're saying things like, I'm a demand gen specialist, the expectation then for people that aren't in marketing that hear that is that, okay, well, they can generate demand for my product.
Yeah.
Which, you know what I mean? Like then you I mean, you can create awareness for the product, and you can create a system that allows people to go from, not aware to then purchase, and, systemize that process.
Yeah.
But I don't, like you're not going to force people who don't want to buy.
Right.
Which is what it sounds like when you talk about demand gen. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Well, you're saying that you can create the demand needed. And if that title in of itself, every company in the world, that means you can just hire these people and you can just create that demand in the moment that you need for the company. Where at the end of the day, what you're really trying to do is create awareness. But do you have the right systems in place? Do you have enough funding in place? Like there's a lot of things that go into. You can't. It's not just you insert key here, turn to the right. Here you go.
Now we have demand.
Now we have demand.
I think we talked about this once before, but there's that there's a post I found about the top 10 pandemic brands, Peloton was in that
Oh,
list.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
Zoom was in that list, and there's a
Zoom.
couple other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple other ones that are in that list. And so their sales, or at least their market valuation, and probably their sales, um, has plummeted from peak pandemic levels. And
Yep.
so, if you're the solution could be, well, we'll hire the more demand specialists, demand
Yep.
gen specialists,
Yep.
so that they can get us more demand for our products so that we can sell more.
Yeah.
And I'm sure they've all tried that, but their sales are still down. Like, it's not magic. There's not a title of a
No.
person that can magically create demand from an audience that you're trying to sell to.
The other thing, actually, just on that, Dale talked about pricing power. At the end of the day, what you're trying to do with brand awareness is potentially have the flexibility to maintain a higher level of
Yeah.
your pricing entry point, if you will, that can drive more profits for
Yeah.
you downstream. But there's a lot of work that has to go into that as well. That's not something
Totally.
that hey, I'm going to turn it on today. And
Yeah.
that means that today I could start charging more because now I've
Yeah.
invested some time in brand.
Yeah.
It's over
No,
time that
totally.
you build that equity.
Yeah. Well, that's a good point. He made a good point, and you just remind me of it. The idea of we invest a lot into SEO,
Yeah,
generally speaking, content marketing, publications, blog posts, all that kind of stuff, website optimization, keywords tagging, all that kind of stuff. And we hire people to do that. And so if you believe in that, then you should also believe in the SEO of the brain.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so that's, like, I think that's actually a really interesting perspective to have,
yeah. That's a great point.
which is brand awareness.
It
And you
is.
can measure a lot of that kind of stuff. Like, it's not, it doesn't change every day. It doesn't, it
No.
doesn't have like the instant gratification of a like on Facebook post.
Yeah,
But it matters a lot.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anything
One
else stick
thing,
out for you? Yeah.
yeah, just quickly. What I also liked is that forecasts are not KPIs. Like if I were to kind of take
Mm.
that out, so there's a few ones in the article that he highlighted. He talked about sales pipeline velocity, but there's others like customer lifetime value, CAC
Mm-hmm.
playback time, like all these things where they're forecasts, they're guesses, but sometimes
Mm-hmm.
they're being interchangeably used as KPIs, which is probably something that we shouldn't be doing as well. So I thought that was an interesting way of looking at that as well, because I would tend to agree with them.
Mm-hmm.
Agree with
Yeah,
him.
totally.
Sorry,
Yeah, yeah,
that they're
yeah.
not
Totally.
metrics.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, yeah, totally. It's like, yeah. I was just trying to think about this car analogy, the car speed analogy, and try to make a reference there. I don't think I can right now.
No, that's okay. But he called it.
um,
What did he call that? He called that. Oh my goodness, something fidelity. Oh,
oh, high fidelity metric.
high
Yeah.
fidelity metric. That's it.
That's
There it is.
actually
It's on the other
that's a
page.
great point. Yeah. So yeah, like your speedometer going as it goes up, your actual
Yep.
speed goes up. As it goes
Yep.
down, your actual speed goes down in the real
Yeah.
world.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was interesting because yeah, there's things like ROI that aren't high fidelity
Isn't that
metrics.
exactly?
Right. Which is
There's a lot
important.
of metrics like that though.
Totally.
But like website traffic could be a high fidelity um, a metric, right?
Mhm. Mhm. Could
Interest
be,
goes
yeah.
up, brand query volume. Campaign goes into the market, brand
Yeah,
query goes up. That shows that. So I think those become the metrics that
totally.
you're actually monitoring from a day-to-day perspective
Because it's the response to the stimuli.
to an
Like
action.
you
Yeah,
press on the accelerator, your speedometer goes up. You press on the brake, your speedometer goes down. And that's
exactly.
reflective of what's actually happening in the real world because you're moving faster
Exactly.
through space.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
I like
totally.
this notion of high fidelity metrics because I think they're the ones that they're closest correlated to behaviors and actions that we take from a day-to-day perspective that you can then
Mhm.
measure.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. The other one I liked that as well that he mentioned was the idea of brand and let's call it performance marketing having they're different asset classes.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so there's a comment he made where, you're measuring things. Let's say you use ROI, ROAS.
Yeah.
That might be okay for a performance metric or performance marketing campaign, although there's a whole bunch of questions around retargeting and and the
I
value
don't
of
know.
that and the ad response curve and all those kinds of things. But there's certainly an equal value return for doing things like brand advertising that shouldn't be measured the
Sure.
same way because it's a different asset class. Like you're talking about human brain SEO as opposed to
Yeah.
online e-com sales.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, interesting.
Is there
Lots
anything
of
else for
things
you?
out there. Well, just in general, like we got off the call or stopped recording, and then we were just chatting a little bit afterwards. And so, yeah, just talking about in general, like the power of questions, I think
Totally.
is helpful. And so we often, I think, just jump right into going into demand gen, right? That totally makes sense. Let's go for it. Like,
Bring them in. Yeah.
yeah, or things like ROAS or ROI. But then we often, if we, to his point during the recording, if we just spent 10 minutes thinking about what that means, we make it like much further ahead quicker because then at least we have a clear understanding of what the thing is that we think we're doing together
Yeah.
and the roles that people have and the measurements that we're using because we're just spending a little bit of time helping to define that. And I think the
Yeah.
questions part is really helpful.
Yeah. Stop, pause, reflect. I don't know.
Yeah.
There's
And then
a
go
framework
forward.
in there somewhere.
Yeah.
Then hit the accelerator.
Yeah. Yeah. Because there's a lot of metrics that really, and we've talked about this before, but really don't
Yeah.
matter and just confuse the whole issue about what we're actually doing and what we're actually delivering.
Yeah. No, it's a great point.
Yeah. Any other thoughts from you?
No, that I would definitely encourage everyone that's listened to this podcast. If you haven't heard or been any close to any of his literature, he writes a lot of great stuff that I would encourage you to take time with and really immerse yourself. I think there's a lot there that it applies both to B2C, B2C and B2B. But I think what I really appreciate is just his most thought-provoking, somewhat
Yeah.
way he approaches it. Like he just released the retargeting piece as well, which is another
Yeah.
great read that will kind of have you thinking about what's the core purpose of retargeting,
Yeah.
right? Well, how should we actually be approaching it?
Yeah.
So
I would say like he's really interesting to talk to, but his posts are so succinct. I think partly because of the LinkedIn format and just a post.
it
They're
forces
so
you.
succinct, like you're really
Yeah.
looking at a specific little thing but it's
I
exploding on that single idea. It's pretty interesting. His writing is awesome.
Yeah, we'll obviously put all the links in the show notes for everyone that we tried to talk to today, but we didn't get a chance to. But you can use that as a bookmark.
Okay, V. So guess what?
I think now it's time to go chase some profitability. I don't know what you're going to do.
All right, there we go. I'm going to go do the same thing. I'm going to go get after it right now. Well, first I'm going to go make some eggs, and then I'm going to go get after some profitability.
Attaboy. Oh boy.
Yeah. Profit
All right,
omelet.
my friend.
Maybe that's what we make it.
A profit omelet. Yes. Over easy.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Well, until next time, we'll talk to you soon.
Chat soon, man. Have a great day.
Okay. You too. Ciao.
Bye.